Anyway, that theme song is way too long. We'll cut off next time. Hey TV fans, this is the pilot episode of Spoiler Alert, where we're going to be going like this and like that, and if you get spoiled, it's your own fault. I'm James, this is Stu. No, you can't wave, it's an audio medium. What's just uncalled for? You're really refusing to speak. Fine. Now we're talking pilots today, at least one of us is, and if pilots are known for one thing, it's that they're generally terrible. They're filled with a ton of exposition, so the rest of the episodes can go nuts for the premise. But yeah, in and of themselves, they're just generally just boring. And speaking of exposition, listen up, because I'm only going to go through the rules once. The title of this podcast is the only spoiler warning you're going to get. So if you really want to watch the show and don't want a joke or plot point spoiled, if you hear one of us mention it, skip ahead a minute or two. For our part, we'll try and say the name of the show at the start of our examples. And to avoid just talking about several episodes or characters or concepts in the same show, someone who's never seen it might get bored by it. We're only allowed to pick one example per show for any given episode. Shouldn't be too difficult today, since shows generally have one episode as their first one. Also, we don't really want to just shit on shows for half an hour, so we'll just try to stick with the positive stuff. Today, what we do is talk about good parts unless we get sidetracked, which we almost certainly will. Also, if we forget or haven't seen a great example, please contact us. I'll let you know if you're wrong. Jump in any time here, Stu. Okay, so most party parts are bad. The show is funny, it's more than likely up there with my favourites, but I was going through all my favourites at sitcoms, and I don't think any of the parts are worth talking about. Hell, The Simpsons is my favourite show of all time, so much so that this podcast is originally going to be called Never Not Simpsons, because pick any category and The Simpsons is probably a prime example of it. But as soon as I realised we were doing pilots first, well, I proved my theory wrong immediately. It's not even that Simpsons roasting on open fire is necessarily bad, it's just meh. That does have Homer getting a new job, which kind of shadows the best plots of the show, where they'll just drop Homer into a profession and see how incompetent he is at it. All Santa just isn't used to its full potential, like Billy Bob would end up doing in Bad Santa. Anyway, compare it to any episode from like season 8. There's 5 laughs in this entire episode, as opposed to the 20 laughs a minute the show would get later on. Anyway, you can do that with most comedies. They only have 20 minutes, and once they cram in introducing characters and the plot, there isn't much room for jokes. My favourite sitcoms of all time have the same issue. Seinfeld's pilot is boring. Scrubs and Community I like the pilots of, but they're nothing compared to what was to become, you know. The ridiculousness of Greendale and Sacred Heart is just barely apparent in those pilots. And I get that, you need the pilot to ground the show in order to get away with the crazy stuff you're going to do later on. Hell, I could list off 100 things from the MASH finale, but I can't remember what the plot of the pilot is. Red Dwarf, though, has a great pilot. Just introducing those 2 jackasses that are stuck with each other, and Cat, so 3 jackasses, really. And it's like killing off an entire crew of people at the start of the episode is kind of a good kind of flip on the sci-fi genre. Arrested Development has a pretty decent pilot. I guess probably not one of the best episodes of the show, but it's one of those quotable for sure. Got the worst fucking attorneys, you know, or cocaine. This is probably recency bias because I just saw the first 8 episodes on a plane, but AP Bio gets straight into the comedy without trying to get you to sympathise with the characters right away, which I think more comedies should do. Give it another month and it probably would classify it among the all-time greats, but it's a good pilot I've seen lately. Probably the pilot a good place because there's a lot of great visual jokes going on while learning about the crazy situation. But even that series just gets better as it goes. So I decided to approach the top of my list as are there any pilots that could be up in the top 10 episodes of their entire show. I came up with a couple. What's your list like? Milk, apples, condoms. I think you might have brought the wrong list here, Stu. So I put down Lost, which isn't even a show I think about that much, because the setup of that show is interesting. There's a plane crash, a polar bear at sea, it's just a bunch of what the fuck stuff going on. It's not until they start trying to answer or ignore those questions that you realise the show didn't really know what it was doing. And it's a good hook, back when they hadn't done the stuff from the path of death, like the flashbacks and the shouting and all that. Black Mirror is a very divisive episode, actually, the first one. I really like it. It's definitely gets the least Black Mirror-y episode, because, you know, it can be set in modern day, and wouldn't really change that much. But, you know, any show that as a Prime Minister fuck a pig, I'm kind of on board with, you know? It's just my fetish. Don't look at me like that's true. My brother thinks the Suits pilot's one of its best, and I can see that. The show definitely thinks that because they're constantly quoting the pilot. I expect it does a new variation on the Most People Live Here. I like to live here, at least twice a season. Anyway, that first meeting between Harvey and Mike is great. Looks his character isn't quite worked out yet, and there's nothing subplots with Mike's mate and his girlfriend that never really goes anywhere. So I guess Jessica finds out eventually because of that conflict, but having to do with was a film called then Pearce and Hardman. It's all solid and sets things up for what the show eventually becomes, which is saving the firm, which kind of sets it apart from all the clients legal shows. I think it does that straight away with Harvey's shown as a guy that settles cases as opposed to winning them. Can't have Me Too, Jenny Crane off the bat. I've got a lot of solid parts here, but I think it's interesting to talk about shows that show their potential well but weren't mind-blowing, so I go straight to the Netflix shows, I guess, because it's all done at once and can be more or less any length. Netflix pilots are quite good at hooking you, and one of, if not my favourite show at the moment, is Stranger Things, and that pilot is freaking great. I've been bugging my brother-in-law to watch it since the first season came out, and he finally sat down and watched the first episode with me, and didn't care. So I stopped bugging him, because that's the situation where if you don't like the pilot, you're not going to like the show. Nothing against him, the same thing happened with me in Sons of Anarchy. I'd heard the pilot was great, I thought it was okay. I ended up watching the series in the background, and yeah, the show's fine. I don't like any of the characters. Jax isn't exactly Walter White in terms of compelling or understanding why he's doing such awful things. So that's like this is Jackass, but I digress. Stranger Things pilot, yeah. The kids are fantastic. That scene where Hopper's like, "Do I make myself clear?" And they immediately go off investigating pretty much. That's the tone for the show. Levin is already working way up from victim to badass. The poor Deliano gets me every time. I don't know why. He just seems like such a nice man. What else we got? Marvel Netflix shows generally have good parts, but if I had to pick a favourite, it would be Jessica Jones. I just love that character, and the part doesn't even really have the Purple Man in it, and it still manages to hook you in just by seeing his after effects. It's a really cool storytelling device, which is setting up Jessica as a chick who just does not care about any situation. And then she finds out he's back, and is immediately booking the hell out of town, and you're like, Jesus, dude must be the worst. It also has the constantly broken door right from the start, which is one of my favourite running gags. Gags, I believe I was going to say there. Anyway, another one of those shows I just loved that immediately started that way. Do you want to chip in? Didn't think so. I considered bring up Breaking Bad, but the pilot is nowhere near the highlights of that show, and the hook for me didn't come until the end of episode 2. Where I was like, yes, this is the show for me. So I put that in the solid category, but nothing to write home about. I've got to bring up Games of Thrones for a second, just because this is a weird situation where it's a good enough episode, but it's a terrible pilot. And there's one main reason why, and that's the White Walker scene. I saw that scene, I was like, cool. I kept waiting for them to show up again, and waiting, and you get the point. I don't know why they introduced the White Walkers in episode 1 if they weren't even going to really rock up again until season 4, where Sam hits with the thingy. But it was dumb. It's the kind of thing where the first time I saw the White Walkers was in a Hard Home, which you won't be surprised is in my top 5 of the show, because god damn it, finally, it'd be like, this shit got real. We already know they're coming because they've been teasing it for years. They'll be like Lucifer showing up in the part of Supernatural, well before the Angel Lord was established. Where'd he go? What was the point of that? Supernatural. That's a good part. Season 1 is kind of rocky, but that's another show that ended up peaking in season 5. Though I still find it entertaining enough that I don't want it to die. But that first episode not only sets up the Winchester Brothers very well, but it took me from the first scene. My brother and I had seen ads for Channel 10 and were like, it's a good show. And when the pilot finally aired, it was even better than we thought it would be. The case is really cool, it's quite simple, just a ghost hunt. But the background stories was very interesting, and had the creep, fun balance down pat. Walking Dead. This might be the best example of a great pilot, only because the rest of the show ends up being mostly trash. Could very well be the best episode. Rick is likeable, which doesn't last very long. Morgan is great, the walks actually serve a purpose. They're waking up in hospital in the zombie apocalypse. Sorry, 28 days later. But that's maybe why it works. If you're going to rip off a movie, rip it off well. I don't know when the comic started either. That might have come first. Anyway, thumbs up. Put Futurama down here, and I think it establishes the world a lot quicker than The Simpsons did. The montage of 1999 to 2099. 29.99 is so well animated and fun that it deserves a mention for that alone. But it's also got the suicide booth and background jokes, and sets up so many jokes and plot lines that the show eventually literally comes back to. But the entire premise is introduce the first 2 minutes of the show and then just get straight into the fun. The crazy future. It doesn't even have Zoidberg or Zap in it, and it still ends up being just a fun time. First doesn't count because it's only 2 episodes, but I rewatched the It miniseries recently, just because I'd seen the movie too many times and I haven't seen this version for almost a decade. But it's great. Tim Curry's Pennywise is the best. The way he just flips from amusing himself to terrifying others. The acting is a lot better than I remembered. I think the only thing that makes the movie better is the bigger budget, because going back, the George scene pales in comparison to the bloody version. It's just so much more horrific, and the floating and the other special effects are just much more impressive on the big screen. Regardless, the miniseries still hooks me just as it did when I was a kid. I was getting my DVDs just as we were about to start, and Freaks and Geeks popped out at me. I've seen the show twice, but I remember quite liking the pilot, so that may have just been the Styx song at the end. Why am I crying? Will I accidentally listen to Come Sail Away by Styx again? That's what I like about it as a teen show, because the teenagers don't look like they're 30, or talk like they're 40. Dawson's Creek! But fitting in with Misfits is just a neat little premise. It's funny enough, and I guess it's simple enough that the plot doesn't have to spend ages explaining what's going on. Okay, my mouth is really dry. Do you mind jumping in this, Stu? That's what I thought. Alright, we'll call it there then. I thought we'd end up each episode with an opinion on any given show, so if you want our thoughts on a show that you like or hate, you can email us at spoilernerd@gmail.com. And I'm not adding this little snippet in post because I forgot to set up a email beforehand. Stu did. Stu forgot. Just don't get upset when I trash it. Now, nobody's emailed in yet for some reason, so Stu, I'm going to close my eyes and move my finger around the bookcase here. Just tap me on the shoulder and whatever I'm pointing at we'll discuss. Now, if I own the DVD, chances are I'll like it, but if you have a better way to have the podcast, I'd like to hear it. Seriously, say something, dude. Alright, ready. Right. Forever. What are the chances of that? Just one case next to seasons and seasons of Fresh Prince and Futurama. Actually, Forever's a decent pilot, now that I think about it. Starts with the main character getting killed. It's quite fun. That quickly devolves into a cases of the week stuff. Now, Forever will probably come up in several categories later on. Henry and Abigail is a love story for the ages. They'll probably say best couples for episode 69. No high five, really. Okay. Look, Forever's a fantastic premise. I love immortality stories, and all the characters on the show are damn good. Abe is just so great. The only reason I'm not mad it got cancelled after one season is the genre. You have a plot that you can do literally anything with, and you make it another police procedural, and just go, ugh. Same thing with Limitless. I like that show. But you got a pill that can make you do limitless things, and you solve crimes. Come on, dude. Like with Sherlock and Psych and Chuck. They go off their own adventures instead of reporting to the police all the time. Oh, Sherlock. Damn, that's a good pilot. I should think about that when I was stitching together the intro. Oh, so I have to go back now. Yeah, so Forever. The flashbacks were the most interesting stuff for me, and I wish they'd managed to do something with putting Henry in at different times, or do time jumps every episode, and have the villain always at their heels, but I guess then you have to age or dismiss the other characters, and I do like Joe and the other ME, even though they could have like any other job and be just as good. Oh well, it works for one season show, and the last episode kind of works as a real finale. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. I've seen it twice, and some specific scenes several more times. I guess fans of it would know which ones I'd keep going back to. Alright, that'll do us. Next week we'll be talking opening theme songs and sequences, so if you have one you want us to mention, contact us and let us know. If you want to hear more, if any, TV from Stu, you can listen to his other podcast, Scrubs in the Middle with Stu, where he watches an episode of Scrubs sandwiched between an episode of Malcolm in the Middle and The Middle. We'll try to be relatively consistent, but if we're not back next week, we'll be back sometime. We might be dead by tomorrow, because enough will die, because we didn't have time. Sorry, that song in my head after all that Forever talk.
Don't judge me, you rich bastard!